I'm Kelly Leger.
And I'm Amber Buto.
And this is Set Life coming to you from For the One Studios in Studio One with our dear friend and guest today, JC Zermeno. JC, tell us, what does JC do in this industry? How do you define yourself? Because I know you do a lot, so I want you to kind of lay a path for us here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me right here. This is quite an honor. And JC stands for short for Juan Carlos. So just makes it a lot easier for people to remember the name with the face and, English wherever I go. So JC, myself, in this industry, I try to pinpoint it to one thing, but it's a combination of many things, right? And at the time where we're at right now, the best way that I would define myself is a creative director, producer that helps brands and businesses come up to the market and position themselves with video and other creatives.
Cool. Awesome.
And you have your own company that does that.
That's right. Yes, I have a team and a good network of individuals to fill certain roles for different types of projects out there. And that's what we mainly been focusing on.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm curious, unless you have something else, I'd love to hear. I want to hear the story.
I
want to hear the story. Tell me, I know that you started down in Brownsville, down in the valley in Texas.
That's right. So originally I'm from Brownsville, and I'm 38 years old now, and I moved here when I was 19 years old, and just, trying to move away from the small towns, from the small cities. I think Houston gave me an opportunity to see a little bit more of the entertainment industry, at least from the bar scene, right? That's where I picked up most of my shifts. I was probably working 3 jobs just to figure things out. So in that time span, it was just all entertainment, bars, nightclubs, private parties that I would go and bartend. So I've been able to meet a lot of interesting people, celebrities, athletes, and all this kind of stuff into that aspect once I came into Houston. So remember, I'm coming from this valley, Brownsville, and I'm here basically alone and trying to understand a new city, a new dynamic of things. And I immersed myself in there. So after that experience of being able to be in this other industry of the nightlife entertainment industry, I ended up doing oil and gas. And why? Mainly because of it was too easy.
Yeah.
It was too easy in the nightlife industry. You can get a lot of things easy, good life, lots of fun, but, I saw myself, I'm like, is this what I want for myself? The answer was no for me, right? So it's I don't want that, but I want to be involved in it. I want to be able to use the access, the network, and the things that I've learned along the way and see how I can figure it out down the road. And which leads me to moving to Singapore, doing completely opposite of what I was doing the whole time, basically going offshore, doing these kind of things, oil and gas. Moved to Singapore by the time I was 25 years old, and was able to live there for about 6 years and really learned how to run crews throughout the whole world, no matter the size. A couple hundred guys, they're here, they're in Africa, they're anywhere else. So there was a lot of dynamic stuff and organizational structure that I kind of learned how to run people and organize companies and what do companies need from that side. So it was very interesting at such a young age, at least that's what I believe, and which brought me back to 2016. Oil and gas crashed, right? What happens then? So my career in that industry kind of came to a halt, and I decided then and there, I'm like, I'm not gonna work for nobody else. I gotta figure this out on my own, right? So the good thing is I had been able to read a lot of cool books that were able to mentor me in the sense and guide me and to think differently. And so I, Rich Dad Poor Dad was one of those books. And
Kiyosaki,
it made me think, how do I see these things and, the quadrant and learning how to be an investor. And so I invested in a nightlife, in the nightlife industry with a very successful entertainment group right now that you would see throughout the city of Houston. My role there is more non-operational, up there, and not the person to be in that industry, but I've been involved in the backside of things where I've seen a lot of success. And for this kind of, I guess, industry and entertainment venue, it's been open for 8 years, which in Houston is like, how does that happen? So there's a lot of principles that I've learned with the network that I've been involved with, of like, what does it take to win an audience? What does it take to cut through the noise? What does it take to cut through the market? So I've been seeing these things through the back end of how to do business. What does it take for business to kind of like come into the market and position itself out there? And also gave me the opportunity while I was in Singapore to invest in the education industry with a partner of mine, Ryan Klonick. And Ryan, I've known him for about all my life since I moved to Houston. I've worked with him, and he's always been in the education system. So he told me he's got this project. Hey, calls me up, and I'm in Singapore, and he's over here, and he's like, hey, so I'm opening up a college. I was like, what, right? Yeah. And so I had to come back over here, and I had to, hear what he was saying, because this is a guy that I've known for quite a long time, and I trust him, and his mission was great. Educate. He's always been educate. He's probably, with his other program that he just sold, he's been able to like give a lot of people checks, right? Feed a lot of people, give them a lot of people opportunity, and these other smaller programs. So I was like, how can I be a part of this? And I learned that, this is what we were doing. He was doing a technical trade school, college, and it was focused in audio engineer and music production.
Wow.
And so he told me that, and he told me the principles, the what's the main goal of doing this. It's like, well, we want to empower students to become the best that they possibly can be with small immersive classrooms and get them ready to go to work in a year.
Yeah.
And so that was an opportunity that was presented to me, and I said, I believe in the leader first and foremost, right? Plenty of people have great ideas, but it comes down to the leader of that organization to say, like, is that person going to go all the way or not? And I think I've been able to vet through my experience to see kind of who does and who does not, right? Yeah. So that was one of the biggest principles that I've learned whenever it comes to investing or my time or money or experience into anything that I do, right? It's like, is this leader capable of taking us there? And in my own way, I started becoming and learning from these leaders that have been very successful in doing these things the right way, and through struggle or non-struggle, or through, just time, building, and then being ready for the opportunity when the opportunity comes. And I think that's where a lot of people drop. So being able to get into these two things and not having a job or a career in oil and gas made me be more immersive into this creative space. Not because I wanted to be the creative, but because I needed to be the creative.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally. JC, I have so many questions
Same.
about that journey. You want to start, or you want me to? Because there's a lot of places to go there.
There is. Okay, I got a question. So, because they're just polar opposite industries, oil and gas and entertainment, I would say where you started in the entertainment, what was it about that you liked so much? And then what was it that drew you out of it, then back to it again?
Great question. I think more than anything was the challenge of building up my own personal experience of doing things that maybe you don't think are possible to do, right? So I think it's for most of us could be like an internal challenge to like, maybe this is something that you have to do to get yourself out there to understand. So I was like, I went complete polar opposite there, just to be like, am I man enough to do it? Can I hang out there? Can I be risky? And, can I travel? And just kind of keep my word to myself that I would stick through it. Yeah. I think that was a powerful thing. But then understanding that I'm all about absorbing and when you're creating, it's chaotic.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of different things, and I go through these phases of as well too, because we start accumulating more experiences, more roles, or more whatever, and it's always trying to simplify it to that one thing. And how do I create these roles? How do I create these positions for where I'm like, hey, I'm in oil and gas, and then I'm back into this industry, and then I start figuring out what is it like a self-analysis of who am I really, right? It was a big question to ask, and so I'm sure some people go through those questions, and for me it was a deep thing. And I write a lot of my things when I was offshore in oil and gas. Like I would go for months on end on a ship, and just kind of like, you don't know when you're gonna come back, right? It could be a month, it could be 2, and then you come land in, and then you go back to work. So this is normal. And that was a challenge that I wanted to explore. And while I was over there, I would read a lot of books, and I would learn a lot of things, right? Like, because what else do you have to do on time?
Yeah. Well, I can think people take a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things, but I'm glad that you took it to read.
Yes, correct.
And grow yourself and pour into that. You know, something that I hear, correct me if I'm wrong, but something I hear about your story is, you know, we all have our own filters. Like, he is creative through and through creative. So everything that he sees is through a creative lens, like a story and cinematic and like all these things all the time. If you have a filter of business, it really doesn't matter if it is entertainment. Doesn't matter if it's oil and gas. Doesn't matter if it's dogs. Doesn't matter if it's widgets. Doesn't matter what it is. You filter that through, how do I challenge myself to take that, learn everything I can strategically about it, formulate that into a business, profit from it, or find out if I can or where I can in that. So all those are all challenges. Versus if you see it through a creative lens, you're looking at it as like, how do I creatively tell this story so that I can also make this profit in a way that makes it the most, you know, exceptional visual way that we can tell this story that promotes it. It's just the lens we see through. It's whatever challenge presents itself. Then you say, do I want to take that on? You know, I don't think you ask a director, you say, what do you want to shoot? They could say a war movie. They could say a love story. They could, I mean, like all these different things. And in business, you're going to say, I don't know, throw something on the table and let's see what we can do with it and see if we can make a business out of it. Some will be more profitable than others. But again, it's the lens that you see that through. I've kind of, you know, listened to you tell your story and heard how you, from a young age, looked at, okay, well, I was a bartender. And while I was being a bartender to pay the bills, I saw opportunity there. How do I systematically put structure to that and strategically put something to that where I can maybe invest that could get me somewhere, and then hit some sort of, maybe not pinnacle, but some point, and then another opportunity within that opportunity presents itself. You're like, okay, here I go. I'll do that here too. To lend you to the question, you say, who am I really? You know, but are we really defined by our industry, or are we defined by our skill sets? Right? And then you start saying, oh, okay, I'm really not an industry. You know, I didn't come from this industry. I came from a different industry. And it was one of the things when I got into this industry, my little strategic mind was like, well, I just need to get in it. I love the challenge. I love the startup. And I just needed to get in it to figure it out. So now I can strategically start putting all the pieces to the puzzle together to go, voila, with my gifts, with my talents, with my experience, and the resources around me and the people around me, then now I can produce this product. And this is what we can yield from it.
It's so good. That's like what you said about like, I'm not defined by my industry or even my position and whatever it is, a bartender or whatever you're doing, you know, but it's like, that's not, you're not letting that define who you are. It made me think of the story of, I can't remember the guy's name, but as I remember, he was a security guard at like one of the major studios in LA. And he met Denzel Washington, or he was going in and out of the studio or whatnot, and he had written a script of his life story, the security guard, and got it to Denzel, or Denzel, they met each other, whatever the case may be. But ultimately, Denzel, they ended up buying the script for $1 million and producing the film. I can't remember the whole deal, which movie that was. But it's the same thing. You know, so this guy was a security guard, watched these people come in and out of the studio all day. He could have let that position define him.
Yeah.
I'm a security guard. This is what I do. That's not my life. This is my life.
Yeah.
But not like seeing any of those walls or barriers or any of that stuff. Just being like, well, I can write. I can write wherever I am. I can have all this time. I can do, you know, whatever I, you know, need to do. And he did. And then next thing you know, I think he's written several more since then, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, that's a cool, you're onto something really beautiful there.
That's true.
You know,
I love that.
I love it. So coming from, you know, coming from Brownsville, you know, let's just say small beginnings, you know, small town, you're, you know, working your way to Houston. Was that like something that the way you always thought? Did you have a mentor, or were you always thinking about like what made you think that way as you went along, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, circumstances definitely are part of the thing where you start seeing the people that are around you doing the same thing over and over, and you're like, I need to break that pattern. I don't want to be that. What do I have to do to go out there? And so by the time I was 18, before 19, moving to Houston, I went to college for a year, and then I dropped out. But I went to Iowa, and I've never even been to Iowa in my life. And I went there and just said, I want to see what this got, right? And I made a lot of great people. I played soccer. It was fun. It was, you know, thing, but I needed a bigger challenge. And that's kind of like what I do, right? So I try those circumstances to say, like, can I challenge myself to put it out there and to be something else different and just see what comes of it, and just be, that's my take at least, is be very free flow to absorb. And I know I can handle more risk than more people, right? And that's kind of like a superpower that I guess I have, and being able to just call that.
Wow.
I think it's really recognizing that. And what's great, you know, on this show, we talk to all kinds of, art. This is art that we all are formulating for the most part. When you talk about music and you talk about film and television, all that, it's a creative art. But what I think is so great is when the art meets the executive, then you're able to then make it hit the potential that it's supposed to hit. You know, executive without the art can't do it, and art without the executive can't hit those pinnacles, so to speak. So one of the things that I've learned by stepping into it is being able to communicate with the executive and communicate with the creative to ultimately blend that picture together to say, okay, great, you're going to do a school, so to speak. Well, that takes executive thinking to think of the structure of the school, potentials of the schools, goals for the schools, strategy of the outlay of the course of the school, and when's the end, right? And then when do we grow from there? You have all of that, but then the curriculum is all creative, you know, that space between that student sitting in that seat and being like, okay, here's how we create. We just had an episode on with a great composer in film, and he was talking through all kinds of music and compositions, and you know, we were saying how it tells a story. It's all just so creative. Like the movies and the things that we see, watch it without sound, and you're like,
it's a different game.
It's totally different
Yeah.
than with sound, you know, and the importance of it. So your school taking the sense of the business side of it, and then marrying that with the creatives to help give them the best opportunity to say, hey, although you're a creative, you got to have some sort of structure to it, because you're going to fit into a business model at some point with that creative. You know, and I think we're doing an injustice if we only foster the creative side and don't prepare for a little bit of like, here's how you work within these boundaries, right? And I think for the executive to just think so systematically, which we've talked a lot about, if you don't leave room for the magic, if you don't leave room for outside the box thinking, and it's just like, this is the way it is, this is how it has to be, isn't good either. Being able to say, okay, I hear you, create on this side of things. I hear you, and I see that would help you better hit your potential. And then being able to say, okay, I hear that I need a little bounds on this. I can't go way over here, you know, because the budget doesn't lend to, you know, that kind of thing. So I hear that both sides of those in your journey
Yeah.
and what you're touching, what your hands are touching, your works and stuff like that, is being able to bring that executive thinking to, more so maybe not to the oil and gas industry. That's pretty structured, systematic, but more to the entertainment producing side, which I would think would make your marketing firm so great. Because you're in marketing, you're doing that. You're able to take the creative and take the data and the mission of the story, put that together to maximize it all, right? And that's kind of, it sounds like your skill set.
Those are those industry. I mean, it's entertainment, whether it's film or the ad world.
Yeah.
That's that left and right brain. There's not too many industries that are both. It's either all systematic numbers, logistics, This is what our widget factory makes.
Yep.
Or it's all creative and art and and all that. So it's like, she's right. I mean, that's that line, or doing both of that in that world. I hear all that too. How has that been for you? Like, did you gravitate first toward the creative stuff, or was it just the business stuff, or was it always both?
Yeah, that's where I think this new way of doing things for me is when it started. Because when we started implementing more of the marketing strategies, approaches to, first and foremost, I test all these things on my own businesses, companies, or myself before I can sell it and say, this is what we did. So I tested it all myself, and it's like, man, we need something different. Like, something needs to pop. Like, how do you get these questions? So you as a business owner, sometimes you consider even giving away your shares because you need leads, because you need business to come through. And so I was like, man, we were willing to give up that because we don't have, the branding, the marketing, the sales, so that was a big question for me. And that's why I explored more on the creative side based on necessity. Based on how do I get creative here, how do I figure it out with the resources that I have. And Tony Robbins always says it's not lack of resources, lack of resourcefulness.
True.
So with what I got, with who I am, I'm just one person, but I'm able to communicate with other people on these visions and creations and strategies, and put it all together. So that the necessity, I think, forces, if we let it forces us to get creative.
What drove you toward the whole school? Because you're doing some really cool stuff. How did that get started, and what appealed to you about hooking up with this school, and how does all that really work?
Yeah, on the education side of things, it was more like the giving back perspective, having a legacy. I think when you're building something, a college or something like that, you know where the end goal is always to be there for a long, long time. So legacy was a very foundational principle. How can I be involved in something that will be there to stand the test of time and give something back in return, right? So I think the education aspect of it, the person that was running behind it too, being able to, we have close circle, inner circle. So, when you go into business with somebody, it's like, do you kind of, you got to treat it like a marriage. Am I going to be locked in for this for the rest of my life? So all these little components, and plus being around artists or, creatives and all this kind of stuff was something that I was really attracted to.
And what kind of stuff talk more about, like, the school in terms of, what are the classes like? What are they learning? What is, I know it's creative, it's arts.
Yes. Music producers, audio engineers. And so they have 4 or 5 classes that they go through. One included even in business, live sound, the 101s, the foundations. So they go through a process of being super hands-on in the first week that they're on the classroom, and then they're also being able to get immersed in other studios and partnerships around the school that we have partnerships with. So a lot of these components are based on just the fundamentals and getting your hands wet and feet wet on all these things that that you can get involved in all the type of projects involved because of the network that is associated in there. So then hopefully that builds the students, that gives them the better capacity to get straight to working and straight to building and creating.
Almost kind of like a trade school for the industry.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, it's so, I don't know, I was going to say bizarre, but I don't think it's really bizarre, about the industry is you have to be hands-on to learn some of these things. It's kind of like studying a book on swimming, but you've never got in the water to swim. Do you think you're going to actually swim across the pool?
Good.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't think so. You're like, as soon as you feel that you sink, it's a panic.
Right.
Like, holy Moses, right? I mean, you're now a totally different way of thinking. You know, this industry is kind of the same thing. Everything is so fast and you are making decisions pretty quick and you're being asked certain terms that maybe you didn't know for sure, like you've read them, but they're not like in real time. So to be able to go to, that's why they say, like, if you can get on your first film, that's your film school. Like, you know, you've got to get your hands on, be in the environment, be thrown into the pool, start kicking and swimming somehow. You're going to flounder. You're not going to look like you're going to win the Olympics or anything.
Right.
But get in the pool.
Yep.
Nonetheless, this is a way that you like get into it.
Totally.
You get into learning and actually fundamentally using the equipment and stuff.
Because a lot of film schools, if you go to an NYU or you go to, you know, wherever you go, you're not going to touch a camera. You're not going to for a long time. You're going to go through film theory. You're going to go through all of these things, as opposed to, I went to a small film school and on day one I had a 16 millimeter film camera in Union Square in New York and we were shooting and I loved it because it was in my hands from day one. And you can learn all the theory and they can talk about all that, but you do it with the camera in your hand. So when they're said you know, this is the ratio of lighting you're going for, you're looking at it while they're teaching it.
And you know, it's funny you say that because my son was going to SMU and he had to have like filler classes, whatever, electives and stuff. So he said, Mom, they have a film class. And I was like, oh, you ought to take it. Like, that would be fun. You know, you love movies, whatever. Oh my, ruined him forever. He's like, if I have to watch one more German film and study the breakdown of what I don't even understand, never again. I'm like, okay, that's not film school. I'm not sure what that was, but you know, no, all respect to SMU. I mean, but it is the film industry and the schooling side of it. You have to go through a lot of that before you ever get to do the trade of it.
Really, they need to have like it's trade school is better.
It is.
If you know there's an aspect of film, like film schools, like Bill, they want to give you this overview of everything, and you niche down to your thing.
Right.
But I mean that if you already know, or if you've been around it a little bit, if you haven't, you're leaning toward audio, you're leaning toward, that's the way to do it. Another thing that you were talking about that I really love is that that you guys are really helping people get jobs, not just be artists, not just learn something and do. You're helping them get a check. You know, how does that work, or how do you help them in that regard?
Yeah, we kind of have to. We have to get a certain percentage of people to get to work, right?
Yeah.
So and it just looks better on us too.
Sure.
The more they work, the more they're happier, and the more they're involved and they develop. So I think we have to be able to provide these circumstances or these opportunities, right? To be able to say like, hey, like this is presented to you. You have this sort of skills. You know, the instructors, they know the ins and outs of who's capable of doing such and such, and the positions comes and the opportunities will come, and if they're ready for it, they'll take it. And so I think you know, digging through the mud to get through the people who are wanting to get involved in this thing, to really focus into growing and like adapting from different industries. They come in learning about wanting to be more of an artist, and then they figure out they like something completely else. They're different, right? So there's a lot of stories, and hopefully at the end of the day, it just makes their pockets fatter.
Yeah,
Okay, I know we're getting close. I have one last question that I would like to ask you. What do you think your favorite part of all the things that we've talked about, what do you think drives you the most?
Yeah, getting results. I think as a business owner, I mean, like you want to see results. I think that's where I differentiate myself into other people's. You know, I don't sell videos, I don't sell marketing, I don't sell branding. I sell results, right? So giving somebody else that I believe in, you know, I try to vet my clients and see where their missions are at and see if they align with my missions and uh, if they have a good mission and I can help them get there and get there, you know, that's pretty cool to me. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
the best.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to hear. I know we're out of time, but I do want to hear this one story. You know, and you're gonna. This is you know, you're gonna get this, especially from the industry that it's in. It's good. It's some interesting conversation. So he, as I understand, you have a really a client in the beef industry that you were really able to help. Like, we're talking like go 10 times on his business from your help. Like, tell me the snapshot of that, what that looked like.
Yeah, so we were hired in 2019 to take on this opportunity of going into one of the toughest industries that I probably had to deal with, and being able to create completely something new at one of the craziest times, I guess, in the world at that moment, and coming out on top was probably one of the coolest experiences that I've ever done. So we were able to create a campaign for at least 6 months prior to it and document a whole bunch of, you know, feed and cattle and feedlots and where do these cows come from? What's in your plate? What's on your plate, right? How is this going? And why is this beef a little bit more expensive than what you would have in the other store? So why choose this thing? So I had to immerse myself in a lot of that documenting process of really being involved and from the cattle to the ranchers to the farmlands to the midlands to the exporting distribution to the country that it was going to be exported to. So it was basically a 6 month immersion of trying to figure out a unique way to position my client at the time to make a statement, to make a and to influence people to be able to buy this in a completely new market, which was in Mexico.
Wow.
So crossing barriers, crossing countries, crossing you know international waters, and trying to communicate with a different audience per se. So it was a lot of you know trying to tap into the future and bring it back over here and see what's going to happen. And so we did it with video, and we created his brand with video and merged it. We were able to connect his personal brand with his company brand, and him have this distribution that would go into Mexico. And so you know the video that came out of those 6 months, or a series of videos, but it was one particular video that we ended up compiling and creating, was for an event in this you know high-end place, Mexico City, and you have all the right audience sitting there and watching a 4-minute video with the right buyers.
Yeah.
And that's the power of video. Getting the right position, getting the right people in there, telling the story
right
with
story.
visuals,
Yep.
right? Giving it the best experience of why they were in the U.S. market and all the best places. So through sheer influence, and then position it over there, and of course with their strategy and tactics of trying to get those people into these things, right? And I mean, it helped so much. So it helped build this brand, and they were able to go from $3 million in sales a year to 16 the first year to 40 the second, because of creating this particular campaign and brand. So
The results guy.
Yeah. I like it.
yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, and more than anything, it was just the challenge of it. It was all no's from the beef industry. There's so many limitations, so many different things. So we were able to figure it out, and then luckily for my client at the time, it was 2020. It was so the world shut down. The world shut down, but he had the video, and he had the series of videos, and he had his brand, and nobody else could shoot at that time. It was very limited to even go across the sea. So for that 1 year span, I mean, it just blew up
Positioned
because
him.
nobody else could do it.
Yeah. Put him in the right position.
Wow. Well, listen, I hate to that's a great way to end.
That is a
this
great
way.
way. Yes.
We're out of time today, but tell them how they can connect with you, connect to school, your brand, website, social, whatever you want to.
Appreciate it. You guys can follow me at Market Hunters, markethunters.com on Instagram as well, IG at Market Hunters, and avantmediainstitute.com, and the same thing with the IG hashtag avant_media_institute.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff.
Well, JC, thanks for sitting with us today and sharing your stories. And
Definitely.
I know that it has encouraged our audience and encouraged the little entrepreneurs that are out there listening today. You know, as much as we have creatives on, I think it's so great when we get to sit with somebody that's strategic in the business as well. And one of the things that we talk about so much here is collaboration. Find what you're not great at and collaborate with it. To bring about this beautiful art that we all get to do on the daily. So I challenge people to reach out to JC and his company, see how you can partner, work with him, go to the school, whatever it is. So thank you for your time today. We know you're a busy man, but we appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming today. So Kelly, it's always great.
Yeah, fun times yet again.
Always great to sit with you. So until next time, we'll see you on Set Life.